What's going on YouTube? So while the Cadillac Escalade is an excellent luxury SUV, not everyone can afford to pay upwards of $120,000 for a three-row Cadillac SUV. And that's where this comes in. This is the all-new 2026 Cadillac VISTIQ. This is still a large luxury SUV with a lot of the same elements from the Escalade, but with a lot more of an appealing price tag. So is this a great pick over other luxury three-rows like the Lexus TX 500 or MDX Type S? Well, let's go ahead and find out. So let's start things off with our quick spec dump. So this model is powered by a 102 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. It's paired with dual motor all-wheel drive producing 615 horsepower, and the range is rated at 305 miles.
Now the base price of the VISTIQ for 2026 is about $77,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now later on in this review, we will be taking this out for a test drive as well as getting things like our signature sound level reading.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because this has a pretty radical looking exterior as well as interior. So getting started here with the exterior design, even though this is effectively the successor to the XT6 model, it really doesn't look a lot like that model. You certainly have kind of more of a mini Escalade look than that model ever had. So you'll notice up here in the front, just like with the Escalade IQ, you have a mostly sealed off fascia. This is going to be illuminated though, in effect giving you that traditional grille look, Each one of the trims has a little bit of a different illumination pattern, but regardless, you're going to have a very high-tech look. The logo, for instance, is going to be illuminated as well, and all of the lighting is going to work together in the front to give you cool animations when you walk up to the vehicle. Now, speaking of animations, let's talk about the headlights themselves. You can see up here at the top, you've got your turn signal and daytime running light. That's got the nice dynamic turn signal. Down below, you've got that cascading crystal LED headlight unit, which is signature for the Cadillac brand. These are adaptive LEDs as well, and they look very, very nice. Now, as far as the wheels are concerned, Cadillac really went big here because your standard option is a 21-inch alloy, and it only goes up from there. You can get 22s, and you can even get 23-inch alloys if you really want something with a lot of pizzazz. Now, this standard wheel here on the sport trim we're showing you today, I think looks quite nice. You've got these accents kind of in between the traditional spokes for a nice contrast finish. You can get some gloss black options as well. Speaking of gloss black, you have gloss black accenting around the wheel arches as well as the lower part of the body, and right up here next to the charge port. We'll talk about charging a little later, but I'll just go ahead and show you the power door there and point out that this does not yet have the NACS charger. As far as the mirrors, gloss black finish up here as well. These have standard all the features, including blind spot monitoring, power folding, and auto dimming. Now, as we take a look here at the side, you'll see this is a very large SUV. It's actually 205.6 inches long, which positions it as one of the largest mid-size three-row SUVs in the segment. It's definitely going to be a couple inches longer than the TX and the MDX if you're comparing between the two, although it still trails the Escalade IQ by about 20 inches. Now, up at the top, we've got the two-tone finish on the roof. This is optional on all but the fully loaded platinum trim. Sport also gets the black accents through the side. All the models get this new layered glass on the back panel here. That's kind of a signature element of the latest Cadillac SUVs. As we take a look at the back, we're going to have that signature Cadillac look, but fully updated. One of the big updates is the fact that the taillights kind of aren't one full unit. They're separated into two different pieces. So up here at the top, you still got your dynamic turn signal indicator, and then down here you got your brake lights. All of it is LED, of course, as you would expect. In the middle, the logo is going to be illuminated. You got their spoiler up top, and then down at the bottom, I'll go ahead and point out, you can tow up to 5,000 pounds. Now, as far as safety systems are concerned, Cadillac makes it nice and easy because they give you every single one of them as standard equipment. That even includes Super Cruise, which is free for 3 years on all trim levels. But there's a lot to show you on the inside because the inside is certainly also inspired by the Escalade. But before we get into that,
if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, moving to the interior. First, here's our key fob. Typical Cadillac key fob. You do have standard smart entry as well as remote preconditioning. And to get inside the vehicle, the door handles will pop out on your approach and you can just grab there and open it right up. Now, like I was saying, you're going to find a lot of interior elements that are inspired by the top tier Escalade model. But before we get into the individual details, of course, we need to start off by talking about the seats themselves. So real leather seats are not actually available on this model. You have two different grades of leatherette. This is the standard grade of leatherette, which is still very nice. As you can see, they've got a lot of stitching details running throughout, perforation, and color contrast options. The important thing about the upgrades on the Premium Luxury and the Platinum is the fact that the upgraded leatherette actually unlocks some additional colors. So if you want brown or the blue you might have seen in some of the photos, you're going to have to choose one of those trim levels. Now, the seat controls themselves are over here on the door trim. You also notice this button right here. That's because all models of the VISTIQ come standard with massage. That's certainly a very nice feature to see. You have heating and ventilation right there as well. But let's go ahead and climb on inside. Now, as I close up the door there, you'll see a cool greeting animation go across the display. And before we fire it up, let's look at the rest of the cabin materials. So, starting out on our door trim, you've got a leatherette trim across the armrest. You have a brushed aluminum for your speaker grills, and then a carbon fiber insert there. Soft touch plastic along the top. Going to the upper dash, soft touch plastic through here. More of that brushed finish through the center section and along the console. More leatherette through here, and you'll find a big piece of the carbon fiber trim along both sides of the console, because you do get that on the sport trim, and you get other types of trim on the other trim levels. Now, to fire it up, just put your foot on the brake. And now the vehicle's all booted up. Let's jump right into some details, and we'll begin with our gauge cluster as always, but I'll go ahead and talk about the screen system itself since it's all connected. So this is Cadillac's 33-inch OLED display. It's a beautiful curved display. Like I said, it's all one piece. And this is used in many of their models. But compared to the Escalade, this is the smaller one. Of course, that one has a 55-inch display, which really goes pillar to pillar. However, as I go through the features, I think you'll find that this is probably more than enough for most people. Now, as far as the gauge section itself, it's approximately 12.3 inches. You can reconfigure the design over here in this side of the display. So you just click Layout. You can switch between a few different things. I prefer the map, but you can also go with something simple if you like. Night vision is available. You have to get the Premium Luxury and above. Also, a head-up display is available on the Premium Luxury and above, but we don't have it on today's sport trim level. Now, as we move back to the steering wheel, all models will have this steering wheel. Nice thick feel to it. You have a lot of buttons on board, including for things like Super Cruise system and your V mode. The wheel itself is always power tilt and telescoping, and heated as well. Now, this is an electric SUV, and because of that, you have some additional options with storage. So let's take a look. Inside our center console here, very deep, nice felt lining. This would fit, I don't really know how many donuts. We'll have to wait until we get one back home in Kentucky to do the full donut test. Up here in the Detroit area today, we don't have all the donuts with us, but this is pretty deep. However, you got a lot more storage beyond just that. So obviously you got your two cup holders right here, but as we kind of move over to the side, you'll see you've got a little storage slit right here. You've got this storage area, which has standard dual wireless phone charging pads. And then down below, you have another pass-through area. And this is really, really large. You could stick just about anything down there. It has a nice lip to hold it in place. So kind of 3 layers of storage on board. That's because our shifter is electronic and it's up here on the column out of the way. Just pull down for drive, go up for reverse, of course. When you go into reverse, you're going to see the standard 360-degree camera system pop up. You can switch between a few different views right through there. It does not have the 360 spin, though. And I have to say, I do wish it was a little bit larger because I don't feel like it's utilizing the full display as well as it could. Now, as we move down to the console area, you'll notice that we got a little panel here. You can use this knob to control the infotainment if you don't want to touch it. And then right in front of that, we have our volume knob. So this has 23 speakers, and we'll give it a sample right now. Yeah, so overall, I think this is a very nice sounding sound system. AKG is really doing some good stuff in the Cadillac models. And like I said, there's a lot of speakers all around the cabin, including right above your head. All right, so let's take our attention next to this panel right here. So just like with the Escalade, you got the pop-up climate control panel, and this is going to contain the controls for our 5-zone automatic climate system. That's right, 5 zones, so you can control the front, the second row, and the third row completely independently. This screen does have capacitive touch, so every time you hit it, you get that nice vibration, which it does make it a lot easier to use while you are driving. And then, of course, your heated and ventilated seats, those are over there on the door trim, as I was showing you earlier. Both of those are standard, by the way. There's really a lot of standard equipment on this VISTIQ model. And then, as we continue, we have our main infotainment side of the 33-inch display. So compared to those rivals I was talking about earlier, you will notice the technology is quite a bit more advanced, but there is one thing that's worth noting. This does not have Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Because this is under the GM electric umbrella, they have eliminated those systems from EVs in their entire lineup. So just be aware of that. You cannot use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but the system itself does have the Google apps built right into it natively so that you can have things like Google Maps right there on the screen. You also have access to Google Assistant and the entire Google Play Store, so you can get apps such as Spotify, Amazon Music, stuff like that built natively into the system itself. Now up top, we've got an auto-dimming mirror. This is the digital camera rear view mirror as well. If you choose the Premium Luxury or the Platinum, that's going to switch this headliner out for a more premium suede. And then let me go ahead and slide back the sunroof panel. Excuse me. Press the wrong button there. What's interesting about this sunroof is not this front part. This is the traditional panoramic style, but it's actually what's back there because the third row gets its own panel. That's interestingly something you can't even get on an Escalade. All right, now let's check out the back seats as well. So beginning with space, we have 40.2 inches of legroom and 39 inches of headroom. Definitely feels pretty darn spacious back here, but you know, we don't have to guess or take their word for it. We've got the Car Confections ruler. We can actually check the knee space. Behind my own 5'8" driving position, it looks like we're setting at, oops, turned it around the wrong way, at about 8 inches of knee room, and my feet can really bounce around underneath of this seat because the floor is super flat for this electric model. That's definitely very nice. Now, as far as features, they've done a great job of giving you lots of things to play with back here. First of all, you've got the leatherette covering across the entire back, which is nice. And then I'll draw your attention to this display. As I was talking about earlier, this has 5 zones of climate, and you get to adjust those zones right here in this big display. Each zone has its own fan as well, so this is very premium compared to a lot of the competition. The screen has some additional functions, so you can actually go in here and adjust the ambient lighting from back here, both the modes and the different styles, the brightness. That's a pretty cool feature. And then you also have 3-stage heated seats. These are standard on every single version, but I do want to point out that ventilated back seats are not offered on the VISTIQ. That is something that some of the rivals are having available, including the TX. Now you also notice we've got the captain's chair arrangement. This is going to be standard on your premium luxury and your platinum trims, optional on the sport and the luxury grades. It's just a small upcharge if you want this, but the overall seating position is quite nice. Of course, it is reclinable as well for maximum comfort. Now, as far as a few other things to point out, we've got a couple USB ports right there. We have our household's power outlet. You get pull-out cup holders. You have vents both there and in the pillar, which is certainly pretty nice. And then as we look over at the door trim, the materials are exactly the same as in the front. So soft touch plastic, you have some metal trim and carbon fiber trim. Overall, it's nicely finished. But this is a 3-row SUV after all, so we need to check out those far back seats as well. Getting back there is going to be very easy. Just going to press that button right there. That will go ahead and kind of fold and tilt the seat out of the way, and you can just kind of give it the rest of its little bit there to give you a nice pathway. Now we'll go ahead and kind of climb on back here. Be aware, this is worst case scenario because I have this seat slid all the way back and it's actually reclined as well. You can certainly push that forward, but Cadillac is rating about 30 inches of legroom and 39 inches of headroom. Headroom is perfectly fine because the seats themselves are mounted pretty low to the ground here, but that does also give us another problem, and that's that thigh support is definitely lacking. Like I said, the seats are very close to the ground since it's kind of elevated back here for your overall, battery pack. So as you can see a little bit clearer as I scoot out there, you do have that low mount. That being said, the seats themselves, nice and comfortable. You do have 2 seats back here. You have a pad over here on the armrest for max comfort, as well as a USB. You have your own dedicated vents. You have speakers right there, and then of course I was mentioning earlier, you have your own dedicated sunroof, which is something that really distinguishes this model from the competition. However, due to the space being somewhat restricted, I am going to have to rate this as good for kids. Let's pop open the tailgate and take a look at our cargo capacity. Just press the Cadillac logo to open it up. It does also have the hands-free ability. And then taking a look inside this cargo department, we've got 15.2 cubic feet of space behind the 3rd row of seats. If we fold those down, we expand to 43 cubic feet. And if we take down the 2nd row as well, we move up to 80.2 cubic feet. Now, in terms of how that compares to some rivals that I've been mentioning throughout this review, such as the Lexus TX, it is going to be a little bit smaller overall. Despite this having a longer length, it is going to be a little bit more kind of compacted, I guess, versus that model. Let me go ahead and kind of fold down some of the seats here so that we can take a look. So if you press those buttons there, it's super easy for you to get all those seats folded down just with one click of each button. You've got the power folding 3rd row as standard equipment, and then you have the power tumbling 2nd row. And it's a nice and flat loading floor as well, which means it's a good time for us to get our measurements here. On Car Confections, we like to get out the tape measure and show you how much space you've got from my driving position to the back here for long objects. We're looking at about 85 inches. That's quite nice. Going to the 2nd row, you have 51 inches. Behind the 3rd row, we've got 20.5 inches. The width here is 44 inches. Cargo height is 28 inches, so it's a little bit more shallow since this is kind of raised up a bit. And then let's finish this off here with our load-in height. we're looking at about 33 inches of height. Now, underneath of here, you're going to find actually a lot of storage. You have this really nice deep bin, which is going to be good for your charge cables or something like that. You also have a little bit more storage over here on the side. But if you want to compare this to some of the gas options we've been mentioning throughout this video, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. On there, we have taken everything available in the segment and ranked them based on the most important categories to you, the three-row luxury SUV shopper. So if something particular is most important to you, such as cargo capacity, powertrains options, stuff like that, you can rank them to see what is the best option or the worst option for you. So again, that's carconfections.com/vehicle rankings.
Alright guys, well here we are behind the wheel of the all-new 2026 Cadillac VISTIQ. In this test drive we'll be talking about a lot of elements as you can see on the screen right now, as well as getting our sound level reading. But first, this has a lot of horsepower, so let's start out with a hard acceleration. Woo!
There we go. To 60 miles per hour with the new VISTIQ. So of course, as we were talking about earlier in the spec dump, 615 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, that's a lot of power. So I'm sure you expect it to be pretty fast, and indeed it is pretty fast. Compared to, you know, the XT6 that was pretty much the predecessor of this model, this is obviously going to be a lot more performance. Definitely in line with, you know, or even faster than what you'd get out of a MDX Type S for sure, or the top-end Lexus TX.
Yeah, even though this is a large three-row, do not doubt the ability for this to really get up and go. The torque really puts you in the back of your seat, 650 pound-feet of torque, and it will scoot wherever you need it to go.
Yeah, just to punch it and you are going, that's for sure, especially when you turn on the Velocity Max mode. So that's the V right here on the steering wheel. You can just punch that, and we have it in the sport mode as well, because I want to just go ahead and demonstrate the top performance that this has to offer right from the beginning. As far as how the power is produced, you've got as the foundation a 102 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack, standard dual motor all-wheel drive as well on all models. In terms of that, you know, battery size, that's a pretty large battery size, and we'll get to it in just a minute, but it does produce pretty good range as well. So we've got a little corner here. I'm going to take this second to go around this a little bit quicker. All right, not bad at all. So obviously, you know, this is a heavy SUV, especially with the battery pack. It's going to be quite heavy. I don't have the exact weight, but very substantial, more than an ICE counterpart, that's for sure. That being said, it carries the weight down low, so when you go around a corner, especially in the sport mode that we're in now, it does kind of tuck in nicely. You still have a little bit of body roll, of course. It's not an overly sporty vehicle no matter which drive mode that you're in, but it feels relatively agile for as large as it is.
Yeah, I think the steering is nice and precise. You do have that lower center of gravity, and when you do put it in the sport mode, all models come standard with adaptive dampers, so you will feel things tighten up just a little bit to give you a better sense of where the car is.
Right, and that really is a major point for this SUV, because more likely than you canyon carving in this, you're going to be cruising down the highway with your whole family. It's got 3 rows after all. So let me pop it back into touring mode, and we can talk a little bit about ride quality. So like Josh was just describing, since it has adaptive dampers, you do get that variability between the different drive modes, and the ride quality on this is pretty good. It's not, I wouldn't say best in class with the adaptive dampers, that is. Now, you do have an available air suspension. That's going to be on your premium, luxury, and platinum grades. So that could change things. We haven't driven that version. But as far as just with the adaptive dampers, you can feel a little bit of the weight kind of bouncing onto some of the larger imperfections, but it does do a good job of isolating out most things. It's just that this class has such a high bar of comfort.
Yes, and I'll also mention when it comes to handling as well as ride quality, when you add on the air suspension with the Premium Luxury and the Platinum, you will also get rear steering. Now this is an EV after all, so I do want to talk about your charging as well as your range figures, and these two actually go hand in hand for this model. As far as your charging goes, you're going to be able to get about 79 miles in 10 minutes when it comes to DC fast charging, and as far as the charging capabilities, you actually have two different options as far as the models go. The Sport and the Luxury on the lower end come standard with 11.5 kilowatt capable charging, and then available on those models and standard on your top two trims is 19.2 kilowatt available charging, and that actually does impact your range. For the lower 11.5 kilowatt, which is what I believe we do have on this model today, you're going to have an overall range of 305 miles. And if you opt on or go for one of the top models with the standard faster charging, it's going to impact your range just a little bit, 5 miles, so you'll be sitting at 300 miles overall. So both of those ranges are really good for a three-row. Things like the Volvo EX90 are in a similar range.
Yeah, it's overall pretty impressive. And of course, you know, compared to something like the Escalade IQ, obviously that gets quite a bit more range, but also the battery pack is like twice as large as this.
And we are speeding up to 55 miles an hour to get our sound level reading. Our front climate is on fan speed 1, and all of our rear climate zones are powered off. Very nice. 53.4 decibels is what we are sitting at in this all-new Cadillac VISTIQ. And I don't have to sit here and guess. I can go to carconfections.com/sound level readings to compare it to all of its competitors. And as far as that sound level reading goes, it is definitely going to be one of the quieter EVs we've tested. And we are not even at home today. We are up in Detroit, Michigan, driving this around for the day. So we are excited to get one back in Kentucky to sample. And I think we're going to be even more impressed with the numbers we're going to be able to get at home.
Let's get into today's slam dunk and airball. So for the slam dunk, we're going to say the standard features that you get on this model. You know, yes, that starting price is a lot higher than what the old XT6 was, but when you actually start to get into the individual features and stuff, you'll see that really this level is equivalent to what a fully loaded XT6 was, or a lot of the rivals. So I think that's actually kind of why that price tag is as high as it is. You really get a lot of standard equipment. Now, as far as the other ones that are way up there at the top, the Platinum, they don't add actually all that many features, so I don't think you really need to go for something like that.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly happy in a sport or a luxury trim. I think they look good and give you the right amount of features. Now, on the airball side of things, we've been comparing the TX and the MDX this entire time. I've also mentioned if you're cross-shopping with an Escalade as well. One thing that will not shine as compared to those models is going to be the third row space, especially with the TX and the Escalade having really, really great amounts of space. The thigh support in the third row and just the overall space figures leave it a little bit to be desired. I wish Cadillac would have maybe changed the packaging just a little bit to allow for more space back there.
Now for pricing. So this vehicle is going to begin with the luxury trim at $77,395. The sport trim is just a few dollars more than that. And then there's a big escalation, though, when you go for a premium luxury or a platinum. As a matter of fact, the platinum starts at $96,495. That being said, I think, honestly, 90% of buyers are going to choose either the luxury or the sport like we're showing you today. The price tag's much more reasonable. We're looking at $81,000 fully tested today, which again is pretty expensive, obviously, but it's not out of line with its rivals in the segment, which are also fully optioned with the same types of features as this one has. Now, if you want to buy a Cadillac VISTIQ or any new model, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/new car quotes. On there, you'll find a tool which will help you get the best price from local dealerships in your area. It'll also give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation. And we even have a payment calculator tool as well. Again, that's carconfections.com/newcarquotes. But buying a new car is about more than the original MSRP. So now let's talk about resale value and reliability.
Let's start with resale value. Using Mason's economics degree, our team has taken the time to determine what a predicted resale value would be on this Cadillac VISTIQ. We estimate after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth about 40.73% of its original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 14.65%. Now that is in line with other luxury brands, but do note that since this is an EV, it is more likely to change due to market conditions at the time.
Now we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several studies on reliability from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a more holistic picture. In this regard, with our latest 2025 data, Cadillac is rated above the overall industry average for all vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale and reliability information, as well as our methodology, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a car is a very big decision, and you want to make sure you're making an informed purchase while you're cross-shopping between different vehicle makes. Now, the VISTIQ will come with Cadillac's standard warranty, which is a 4-year and 50,000 mile basic warranty, 8 years and 100,000 miles as far as your battery is concerned, and you will get 1 year and 1 visit for complimentary maintenance.
Well guys, we hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at the all-new 2026 Cadillac VISTIQ. If you found this helpful in your purchasing decisions, and we hope you did, we would appreciate if you go down below and click subscribe. When you subscribe to our channel, that shows everybody, including automakers, that you found our content useful, and that's why they give us access to things such as this all-new VISTIQ today in Detroit. If you're already a fan and subscriber, we thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.